All to Jesus I surrender. All to Thee I freely give. I will ever love and trust You in Your presence.
16th Sunday in ordinary time PSC. Hospitality through listening. Charity, hospitality, generosity are acts which please God. Wise and holy men usually say we must be hospitable to everyone, because we do not know when God can disguise Himself and come to our house. This is well spelled out in the letter to the Hebrews. Let mutual love continue. Do not neglect hospitality, for through it some have unknowingly entertained angels. Letter to the Hebrews chapter 13 verse 1. Through his act of hospitability and generosity, Abraham hosted and catered for 3 travelers. This was matched by the promise that he and Sarah would become parents of a son. Initially unaware of the identity of these expected guests, Abraham would later learn that he had extended hospitality to God and his angels. Genesis chapter 18 verse 10, verse 13, and chapter 19 verse 1. Now in the gospel, we are presented with another episode of generosity. This takes place in the home of Martha and Mary. Martha opened her home to Jesus and was so engrossed into preparing something to welcome him, as we do whenever we have our guests. Probably she was preparing a meal which Jesus loved so much. Martha, by preparing that meal of hospitality, was doing a very wonderful thing. She was doing what was necessary, and she was doing an act of service. This explains why she complained to Jesus why Mary, her sister, was not helping her in the service. This is because Mary chose something else. Instead of serving God, instead of serving Jesus physically, she sat at the feet of Jesus, listening to Jesus. Surely, Jesus' reply to Martha must have frustrated her. Instead, he praised Mary for making the right choice. Mary chose to listen to the word from God, from Jesus himself. Jesus, the living word, was there present right in our house. If she were going to love God and love neighbor, she was to show hospitality to stranger, cater for the lost, then everything would depend on hearing and trusting in that word, Jesus Christ, she was listening to. It is quite good to serve and cater for one's physical needs. However, without the fuel of prayer, service, and communion with God, service can become a crushing responsibility, a burden rather than a vocation, an annoyed grumbling rather than a response to the invitation of God. The story of Mary and Martha comes down to the importance of having priorities. Our priority must be to seek first the kingdom of God. We can be inspired from Matthew chapter 6 verse 33. Set your heart first on the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will also be given to you. Our daily lives have become so busy with everyday things of life that we neglect the most important things. We live in a Martha-like world where it is not easy at all to have time to meditate. There are times when we just need to stop, be quiet, and still, and rest in the presence of the Lord. That is what Mary did. She knew Jesus needed company that day. He needed not a housekeeper, but a listener. Listening heals. This is more than sympathy. It is empathy. We should learn to be good listeners. Ernest Hemingway gives us a fundamental advice. When people talk, listen completely. Most people never listen. In the same vein, Bernard M. Baruch also insists that most of the successful people I've known are the ones who do more listening than talking. Jesus never says that what Martha is doing has no value. Instead, Jesus simply states that there is a greater value than the physical hospitality. Listening to the one who comes in the name of the Lord. The lesson of today is that offering hospitality always brings a gift from God. Perhaps even more important than physical hospitality is simply listening to one another. Let us learn to become good listeners. That is the best sign of hospitality. The Almighty God bless you. The Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
I surrender all.
Amen.
I surrender all. I surrender all. All to Thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all. All to Thee, my blessed. All to Thee.